How's it going, my dudes? This video's brought to you by Squarespace today. In a way, one of the best things about Star Trek Legacy not being greenlit yet is everything, and I mean everything, is up for grabs when it comes to imagination. We can think of the characters we'd love to see, we can think of the places we'd love to see, and we can think of the ships we'd love to see. Clive Burrell sat down and went through all of these ships that really just have to be seen in Star Trek Legacy, and in the great tradition of, well, quite frankly, turning his work into videos. Thanks, Clive. I'm Sean Ferrick for TrekCulture, and here are 10 ships we need to see in Star Trek Legacy. Number 10, USS Enterprise E. That one line in the penultimate episode of Picard's third season leaves the question open: what on earth happened to the Enterprise E, and what did Worf do? You see, the line was vague enough that it suggested the Enterprise E is still out there somewhere, although it's not on display at the Fleet Museum. So, what happened to it? If we take one of the last scenes of the last episode, where it's a year later, and the Enterprise E is still not on display at the Fleet Museum, this begs the question: what happened to the sixth ship to bear the name Enterprise, and how could this affect the plot of Star Trek Legacy? Sovereign-class ships are very much alive and well in the time of Picard, and of course they turn up in Star Trek Prodigy as well, and Star Trek Lower Decks. Seeing the Enterprise E at least either depicted in a final way, or just explaining where the ship has gone, would help fans understand this unanswered question for an Enterprise in Star Trek, and would also potentially get Worf off the hook. Number 9, USS Pasteur Olympic class. All Good Things jumped 25 years into a potential future for the next generation, which places it around the late 2390s. Star Trek Picard, of course, picks up after this time period. And while some things thankfully didn't come to pass, such as the conflict with the Klingons and the death of Councillor Troi, there are other elements of this All Good Things future which would be very interesting to follow up on. One such thing is the Olympic-class ships, which would of course be the USS Pasteur that Captain Beverly Picard would command in All Good Things. We did see an Olympic-class ship in service in, well, it was a flashback in Lower Decks, but it was stationed at Deep Space Nine with Beckett Mariner serving aboard. The ship was inspired by Matt Jeffries' original designs for the USS Enterprise, and of course heavily based on the Daedalus-class ships. We would be most familiar with Daedalus-class ships for there being one model of one in Sisko's office in almost every single episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Daedalus models aside, it remains the only Starfleet ship to have a spherical primary hull, and for that alone, I just love to see it back again. Number 8, Galaxy X. The return of the Enterprise D was prolific, iconic, galaxy-changing. As time has passed, there's been updates to the original design from 1987, such as the Ross class, which debuted in Star Trek Online and has since been shown on screen in Star Trek Picard. Fans will also know that the biggest change to the Enterprise D, apart from, well, what happened to it over Viridian 3, was what we saw in All Good Things. Boasting a third warp nacelle, a big old weapon of mass destruction, and more added extras than Exhibit and West Coast Customs could ever dream of, the Dreadnought-style Enterprise D burst into our imagination and hearts as it destroyed one of the Klingon, then unnamed, Nagvar-class attack ships. While this would now be a much older space frame, this future series that we are absolutely calling Legacy could still display this type of Galaxy-class ship, as it would be a testbed for new technologies. After all, the Star Trek The Next Generation technical manual gives a Galaxy-class ship a lifespan of about 100 years, with a major overhaul required every 20 or so. It may not be the Enterprise, Syracuse, Entercuse that gets a makeover in Star Trek Legacy, but other ships such as the Galaxy and the Venture are still unaccounted for. Where are they? Have they too been retired to a fleet-esque museum? Could they be the testbed? Number 7, CSS World Raiser. Okay, here's a curveball. It would be a real spin to head back to Q's alternate universe that was created in the second season of Picard and have a look at what the ships of the Confederation are up to. First glimpsed only in a painting and then rapidly re-envisaged by social media in the years that have gone by, the CSS Worldraiser was General Picard's flagship when he managed to take on and vanquish the Borg. Now, this may not have been the most peaceful universe of them all, but they sure knew how to take on one of the most devastating enemies that anyone's ever faced. The Worldraiser is, of course, an updated design of the Enterprise D, though with a much heavier artillery armada and vicious-looking cut-out sections of the ship to give it a real mean look. The Mirror Universe gets mentioned more times than Khan does, so having another universe to dip in and out of basically would spice things up. The more aggressive Confederation universe, while not as aggressive as the Mirror Universe, still boasts enough that we want to have another look. I mean, look at how they did the Nova and Steamrunner class ships as well. Number 6. La Sirena. La Sirena was present in some form for the entire duration of Star Trek Picard. Captained by Rios, Seven, and finally Raffi, this ship had more facelift than your average Sona, and boasted 3 distinct paint jobs throughout the series run. The reason this ship needs to appear is because it's become so associated with some of the main characters of, well, quite frankly, the Enterprise G. Set reuse would be fairly straightforward, as it's already been reused a few times. For example, Vadic's ship, the Shrike, is a reuse of the cargo bay set from La Sirena. It's the first of 2 starships on this list to be captained by both Cristobal Rios and Seven of Nine. As a stalwart of the Picard series, this one seems like a bit of a no-brainer to bring back, even if it becomes something of a heavy-duty scout ship or sits parked alongside a runabout for most of the series run. Number 5. USS Aventine. The Vesta class has long been a staple of beta canon in Star Trek. However, unlike its literary cousin, the Luna class, it has yet to make an appearance on screen. Featuring all the way up to the Coda trilogy, the fan-favourite USS Aventine appeared in many novels and was captained by Ezri Dax, who ascended to the role in the Destiny trilogy. Mark Rademacher designed the Aventine, and the sleek starship has been in fact released as part of the Eaglemoss collection. In Prodigy, we've got the Slipstream-enabled USS Dauntless, and we've got the Protostar-driven USS Protostar. It does seem like this might be the perfect place to have another experimental propulsion-type starship. 7 ships of the class were built, all named after, except the Vesta itself, the 7 Hills of Rome. Classed as a multi-mission surveillance explorer, the Vesta class would seem like an ideal addition to Star Trek Legacy. Number 4. USS Stargazer. The former command of Cristobal Rios, the USS Stargazer was Star Trek Picard's first true hero Starfleet ship. A big leap forward from that movie-era Constellation class that we saw in the battle, this Sagan class ship still keeps some of that 23rd century inspiration while stepping firmly away from the copy and paste fleet at the end of Star Trek Picard's first season. The ship is very much still in service, having been part of the celebration fleet for Frontier Day in Vox, although it didn't get anywhere near the amount of exposure that it did in the second season. Technically, this would be quite an easy ship to bring back in because a lot of the standing sets for the Titan or the Enterprise G were adapted from the original sets built for the Stargazer. And another fun fact, the Stargazer's nacelles were effectively cut and pasted onto Bill Krause's Shangri-La class model to create the Titan that we saw in Season 3. Number 3. Voyager B. Thanks to the excellent episode 2 Vix of Star Trek Lower Decks' 4th season, we now know that Voyager became a museum piece on the planet Earth before moving to the Fleet Museum over at 8th and Prime, although one wonders if those mannequins are still in place. This entry, however, it's not about that ship, it's about one of its successors. Star Trek Discovery has established that Voyager J is flying around in the 32nd century, and Star Trek Prodigy's 2nd season has introduced the Lamar-class Voyager A. While, as confirmed, it has only been seen as a graphic on screen in Star Trek Picard, the Pathfinder-class Voyager B seems to be in service as of the early 25th century. This does suggest a bit of a short shelf life for the Voyager A, but you never know. maybe there won't be a horrible disaster like so many other ships before it, and maybe it will live a long and happy life. Star Trek Online fans will be very familiar with this ship, as it's been playable for quite some time, and it's a distinct derivative of the Intrepid class. The ship is designed for exploration, particularly of the Delta Quadrant, and is equipped with an awful lot of the technology that was both present on Voyager and developed by the crew of Voyager as well. Number 2, USS Emmett Till. The USS Emmett Till was introduced in the documentary What We Left Behind, as the writers of the show came together to break what would be the pilot episode for the mythical 8th season of Deep Space Nine. The Emmett Till would be Ezri Dax's command, and there was going to be an Eaglemoss model of it before, unfortunately, things fell through there. The quad-engined starship has to make an appearance in Legacy now. We've been teased with it. If Legacy was to pick up from where Star Trek Picard Season 3 left off, that would mean that the Emmett Till would have been in service, possibly for quite some time, or a simple refit could fix that. A classic John Eves design, the ship was named after a young boy who was murdered by a lynch mob in Mississippi in 1955. As we know, Deep Space Nine often tackled the issues of racism and racial inequality in the US, so carrying the Emmett Till over into Legacy would be a very strong statement about keeping the legacy of Deep Space Nine alive as well. Number 1, NX-01. The sight of that ship at the Fleet Museum satiated what many fans wondered about after the end of Season 4 of Enterprise. Now, while Picard's Stargazer, the Enterprise A, the Bounty, and ships of the sort get sort of the most notice in that first episode set at the Fleet Museum, everything slightly overshadowed by that other ship in the second episode there, the NX-01 did not go unnoticed. It was not simply the inclusion of the NX-01, but the fact that it was updated to include the star drive section that had been proposed for the refit for the never-produced Season 5 of Enterprise. Having this ship present at the Fleet Museum confirms that Doug Drexler's hope for a refit Enterprise did in fact happen, and also lends a bit more credence to the idea that These Are the Voyages is not canon. If that is to be the case, then having the NX-01 appear in Legacy, even if it's an episode where we discuss what exactly happened to it, would also help to fill in the blanks about another huge part of Star Trek history, which is of course the Earth-Romulan War of the 22nd century. It was said that the NX-01 took part in these conflicts and clearly must have undergone a refit to take part in said conflicts. So will this be a way to further link Enterprise with the rest of the franchise, and if so, discuss the legacy that Archer and his crew and ship left for all of us to follow?
Hi, I'm Tom Larkin. Last time I told you about my GTN blog. Don't tell Starfleet. Thanks, Squarespace.
Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform designed to help entrepreneurs stand out online.
Squarespace allows me to link my social and multimedia accounts in just a few clicks, so you can see everything that GTN has to report, including things Starfleet doesn't want you to know. Squarespace uses Daystrom-approved design intelligence AI technology. Take control and build a beautiful, personalized website catered to your needs. SEO doodads, so you show up to more civilizations more often, but beware, Section 31 is a thing. Go to squarespace.com/TrekCulture, where you will get a free trial and 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. And remember, don't tell Starfleet.
That's everything for our list today, folks. What do you think? What ships are you absolutely sure must make an appearance in Star Trek Legacy? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you so much to Clive Burrell, who wrote the article upon which this was based. You can go and check that out on whatculture.com. Remember to follow us on Twitter and Blue Sky and TikTok at TrekCulture. We're also on Instagram at TrekCultureYT. I'm at Sean Ferrick on the various socials, and Clive is at SKOST as well. You are awesome, you are wonderful, you are brilliant. Make sure that you live long and prosper until I see you again. You are cool, and you deserve to be treated as such. Thanks very much, folks. See you soon.